For as long as I can remember, I've been absolutely obsessed with everything about Halloween. The gore, the violence, fear, death, mayhem, and most importantly, the letting loose of inhibitions. It's a holiday of pure indulgence and debauchery. I've always thought of it as a holiday that was custom tailored to my tastes. As a child, I think that my exuberance for the festivities might have been a cause of some concerns, but my parents eventually came to terms with it, and maybe even understood me a little better, I think. The small town in Minnesota where I spent my early childhood used to really get into the holiday too, so I suppose that might have added fuel to the proverbial fire. When I say they really used to get into it, I mean it was a lot more than just a few tame little silly decorations around Main Street. The entire town would go all out. For the entire month of October, festivities would ramp up. There was a carnival at the town centre and dances at the agricultural hall. The streets would be decorated with scarecrows, pumpkins, spiderwebs and the like. The park by the school would become a haunted bog, and the mason farm at the edge of town would carve a maze into the back corner of their cornfield. Each and every building on Main Street transformed into their own version of a haunted mansion, an abandoned mental hospital, or whatever macabre incarnation that the homeowner or shopkeeper could concoct and construct. The path along the creek that ran along the north side of the town would even host a spooky haunted hike. I think I remember that the most vividly. I always wanted to be one of the people that got to hide along that path and jumped out and scared the hikers. I never officially got to though. The town stopped celebrating altogether after those kids went missing. I didn't see what the big deal was though. I mean, if anything, the mystery only added to the suspense and fear. I mean, that's what Halloween is all about, right? It was the night before Halloween when they disappeared. I was only maybe 7 or 8 at the time and my parents totally flipped out. The whole town went crazy really. I remember it was the night before Halloween because I was super upset that I wasn't allowed to go trick-or-treating. The town went into kind of a total lockdown, back before lockdowns were hip. The kids that went missing were just a few grades ahead of me in school, and couldn't have been older than maybe 12. They'd all gone as a group just ahead of their parents. They skipped and danced along the haunted trail, joking and laughing the whole way. After a while, the laughter and jokes stopped. The children's parents didn't even notice at first. They'd become distracted with their own conversations. It wasn't until they completed the hike that they realised that the children never emerged from the woods along the creek. By the time they went back to try and find them, there was no trace. The path in months other than October was just a hiking path where people would walk their dogs, some folks would jog, and young lovers could walk holding hands on romantic moonlight strolls. I don't think it got much use after that Halloween though. People really held onto and felt the trauma of those missing kids deeply. To me, it seemed silly. It's just part of life. People die or go missing all the time. Plus, those particular children that went missing were pretty rotten little shits anyway. If you ask me, the town was better off without them running around being little arseholes. For weeks, everyone in the town searched the woods, and they dragged the creek what must have been 1,000 times. The only thing they ever found was a shoe. Just one shoe. Before too long, the town finally held a mass funeral for the missing kids. That was the last thing I remember the town ever doing together. I'm just glad that I was young enough they didn't totally ruin Halloween for me for the rest of my life. It was only a few years before the town pretended the holiday didn't exist, before my family and I moved to Arizona. My parents didn't talk about the missing kids again once we left Minnesota. That was fine with me since it meant that I got to go back to celebrating Halloween in all its glory. The whole family really got back into the holiday. Once again, every year, we would go all out with the decorations. We were always that house in the neighbourhood that some kids were scared to approach. This year, we're creating our own very haunted hike that meanders from the street, through the yard, to our door. I'm finally going to officially be a part of the whole disturbing ordeal. When I say I've been obsessed with the holiday, I mean I'm that weird kid that loves it for more than just the candy, and everyone knows it. I love telling my classmates scary stories. Tales of our old town and how they all went out. I even weaved a special one about those missing kids. How the town never found them and whispered at that deranged killer that lurks in the woods. I think that one might have given some of my classmates nightmares. For me, being able to get that sort of reaction and that level of fear out of someone is almost like a drug. I love it so very much. That's why, that year, I decided that in order to get my fix, I was going to have to create a real buzz. Something that would truly terrify people. Missing children seemed to do the trick last time, but I wanted something more. Something bigger. I wondered what would happen if they found the bodies this time. Perhaps mutilated this time. I've already got the kids picked out. I hope it's not harder with older kids. I thought that my parents would be furious when they discovered my plan, but to my surprise they totally understood. They told me they've known about my addiction, if you will, for a long time. Dad told all about how they pulled off hiding the bodies back in Minnesota so that I wouldn't be caught. I'd always wondered how no one ever found them, but I was too excited by the fear, the mystery caused, to ask too many questions. What can I say? I was young and hadn't developed my niche yet. It's going to be even better this time. We're going to use their body parts to decorate our haunted hike. It's going to be magnificent. So very lifelike. The best part is that we're going to get to start over again after this Halloween. A new town, new identities, the whole works. The plan is truly beautiful and should create quite the stir. I figure just about the time folks start to figure out that the decorations are really body parts, the fire will start. When the smoke clears, the investigation should show my parents and I were among those that were trapped in the fire when the gas leak erupted. I just hope we don't have to wait as long to do it again after this year. People think the monsters only come out at night. But what if some demons operated only during the daytime? They come around with devious smiles, showing upon their small round faces. Like imps sent from hell to torture us all. They invade our land every day. It doesn't take long before they start to kill. One at a time, they take the lives of my kin. My parents died at their hands, and now my brothers and sisters will be next. They only choose the prettiest ones among us, which means I'm safe. Warts have been spreading across my face for as long as I can remember. Boils that bloom and grow mark my skin, and cause people to look away from me in revulsion when they see me. Even a murderer doesn't want to look at that. They want a clean face to cut into, an unblemished soul to hack and saw into, ripping out our brains after sawing our skulls with rusted, dull instruments of pain. One by one my countrymen fell, their corpses dragged off, back to the homes of the invaders. There, who knows what terrors will await my friends and brethren. Rumours speak of even worse things than cuts with rusty blades and skull-slitting saws. Some say they like to use fire, to further torture those who make it through the first stages of agony without breaking. I don't know what's true and what's not anymore. All I know is that my time is coming. One by one, my brothers and sisters are taken, until there are only a few of us left. My warts and boils no longer look so bad compared to these other ones, who were born into bodies twisted and malformed. They sit, waiting for their turn, but I have a strong suspicion it won't be them who's next. "How about this one?" says one of the tall, strange-looking invaders. "The warts are kinda creepy, could make a good witch." The smaller, wide-eyed monster looks at me with her tiny mouth, spreading in a smile. "Can I cut the pumpkin this year, Daddy?" she asks, reaching for the blade. "I don't think you're quite old enough yet, honey. The knife is very sharp. Here, let me show you and you can try next year." The little gremlin groaned and relented, and a moment later they were kneeling down, and the bigger one was sawing at my neck with a dull and rusty blade. My skin bled and broke as I felt pain blossom across my entire being. The man hacked and ran the blade back and forth in rapid motions, his forehead beading with sweat. "There," he said, ripping me up from the ground. "Now let's go home, cut out its eyes, carve up its face, and stick a candle in there." "I love you, Daddy," said the monster. "I love you too, sweetie. Happy Halloween." I don't normally take part in Halloween, because I'm not fond of the holidays, but I still give out candy to children on Halloween. The day before Halloween, I stocked up on candy to give away so I'd have lots for little trick-or-treaters coming by. I live out of town, so we don't normally get that many trick-or-treaters, but whatever candy is not given out by the end of the night, I would normally just end up eating it. It reached the time that trick-or-treaters would start coming out for candy. I decided to stay in my living room. That way it'd be easier for me to answer the door. I'd gotten a few trick-or-treaters who'd come with their parents, but not many. It came the time they would have gone home to count their candy, or do whatever trick-or-treaters do after getting all the candy they wanted. So, I didn't expect to get anyone else, especially out of town. Just when I was getting ready to go to bed, my doorbell rang. I thought it was weird since it was already 11 PM, but I didn't think too much of it. I went to the front door with my bowl of candy, and there was a kid, in a Michael Myers costume. I said, "Cool costume," and handed them a handful of candy. Once I did, they looked at the candy for a while. I was confused, and I assumed they were being greedy and wanted more. I didn't mind though, so I handed them more candy. This time they looked up at me for a second, then walked off. Weird, I thought before shutting my door and going upstairs. I'd been laying in bed on my phone for a few hours when I heard my back door being opened. I live alone, so this was absolutely terrifying. Imagine being home alone laying in your bed at midnight then hearing your squeaky back door creak open. I yelled into my house to whoever had broken in to leave before I called the cops. I got no answer, of course, but I never heard anyone leave. That was the moment I heard a nightmarish laugh. It echoed throughout the whole house. I ran to my bathroom, it being the only door in my house with a lock. As soon as I was in there, I locked the door. I heard loud footsteps coming up the stairs and stopped right at the bathroom door. They started banging really hard on the door, and I heard them scratching at the door with what I thought had to be a knife. I screamed at them that I was on the phone with the cops, and they better leave before they got there. That's when I actually got on the phone with the cops. I heard someone say in a really deep and scary voice that they just wanted some candy. I didn't answer. I just stood in the middle of the bathroom with my mouth open, terrified of whoever the man outside the door was. They walked away after saying that, but I didn't get out of my bathroom until the cops were there. Once I got out, the cops handed me a Michael Myers mask and asked, "Is this yours?" My eyes opened as wide as humanly possible. I asked them where they found it. They said they found it sitting on my table downstairs in my kitchen. I told them it wasn't mine and that it belonged to a strange trick-or-treater I'd gotten. Way later than anyone would normally be out. I felt like an idiot. Of course I couldn't have gotten an actual trick-or-treater to my house at 11 PM. I'm scared for this Halloween. I'm in fear of the man returning and doing whatever he was going to do to me last Halloween. I'm absolutely terrified. That's how Halloween became the scariest day of my life.